Don't be afraid of educating them on the score sheet because you don't have the answer to something. The best coaches are those who are constantly learning. Here's what our protocol would be if an athlete did get hit in the head. So unless it happened before they walked in the gym or after they walked out of the gym, that did not happen at practice. I'm going to be honest, cameras, they are hindsight. If your answer to this is we have cameras in our facility and that's how we keep kids safe, the hindsight is 2020. Hi guys, welcome to Fireside Chat with the Johnsons. I'm Danielle Johnson. Normally Justin is here with me, but today I am on my own for this episode of Fireside Chat. So if you don't know a lot about us, my name is Danielle. We own a gym in Warrensburg, Missouri, and it is primarily recreational tumbling. We do have a pretty good size all-star program now. We do birthday parties, private lessons, tons of camps. We have a licensed childcare facility where we do before and after school programming and full day summer camp. So that's a little bit about me. I've been an owner of Next Generation Gym Owners for the last 6 years. In that capacity, I've coached hundreds of gym owners through the Next Gen Academy. Okay, I have got a great topic for you today, so let's get into it. Educated parents can be huge advocates for the gym. Not only can they build the credibility in your gym, but they also help to systemize word of mouth marketing. So if you ever are asking people, maybe they're purchasing a trial membership or they're coming into the gym for the first time for a tour, and you're asking them, how did you hear about the gym? A lot of times people are going to say word of mouth. Now, in reality, they probably saw you on Facebook. They probably saw your gym in a parade. And they saw kids with t-shirts on. They saw stuff like that. But they are always going to say word of mouth when they can't remember where exactly they saw your gym. So educating the current parents in your gym makes this super easy to essentially systemize word of mouth marketing. Additionally, educating parents in your gym is going to be the perfect way to increase your retention long term. Because if you can increase your retention, you're going to increase the average lifespan of a customer, meaning their lifetime value. And lifetime value means a lot in a business. It helps you know how much you should be spending on marketing and how many people and finances you can invest to get new kids in the door. So here we go. 3 things you need to make sure that you are educating your gym parents on today. Number 1, for your all-star parents, make sure you're educating them on the score sheet. Now, I know for some who might be new to all-star, this can be a little bit intimidating. And for those who maybe have been an all-star a really long time, you're thinking, oh, Danielle, this is a terrible suggestion. You are going to cause me so much grief in my gym because all of a sudden parents are going to think they know everything about the score sheet and they're going to interrupt practice to fix our routines or at least fix our routines. Here's the thing though. Don't be afraid to educate parents on the score sheet. Not only does it show how educated you are as a coach, but it helps parents understand why you're making the decisions you're making. Additionally, educating parents on the score sheet is going to help parents understand why it's so important that their kids are at practices. I recently wrote a blog on this where I talked about the attendance dilemma. If you've been missing kids at practices and they're prioritizing other things, it can be really valuable to educate the parents on the score sheet so that they understand exactly how many times formations and overall performance factor is on that score sheet. It might be listed in a variety of different ways, but it is absolutely important to have every athlete at practice. On top of that, when parents are educated on the score sheet, they understand how important timing and synchronization is in every element of our routine, and they can understand the impact that your pyramid makes on the overall routine. So we need every athlete for pyramid. We need every athlete for dance. There are no bench warmers here in all-star cheer. And it helps parents understand and see that. Maybe their child is the one tumbling across the floor in the beginning. But once they get educated on the score sheet, they can understand that that tumbling pass is pretty much all that tumbling judge has to look at if they're tumbling during the setting section. So that tumbling pass needs to be truly as close to perfected as possible. Lastly, when it comes to educating parents on the score sheet, you as a coach are going to become so much more educated on the score sheet when you now become the teacher. You might be sitting on those monthly score sheet call meetings and you're learning, but as you do that, knowing that you might potentially have parents asking these questions, or you might be wanting to teach on elements of the score sheet, are going to help you so much. You're going to pay more attention. You're going to retain that information better. You might even be taking notes. Make sure that you are retaining it so that you can answer the questions the parents have. Don't be afraid of educating them on the score sheet because you don't have the answer to something. The best coaches are those who are constantly learning. And so if you don't know the answer to something, you just let parents know, I'm not really sure on that answer, but let me find out and I'll get back to you. Make sure you follow through on that so that they know that you actually invested some time into researching and finding the answer. Number 2, this is so important, not just for your all-star athletes, but for your recreational parents. You need to teach them why drills are so important. We recently saw on a Facebook group where a parent who was one of our former preschool parents was asking in the group, hey, does anybody know where else I can go for preschool gymnastics? We did twisters. It was great. And it's so repetitive. Guys, I didn't even have to say a whole lot. The parents in our gym who were educated on this came to the rescue pretty quickly because we've taught them over time. Our all-star parents know why you have to drill and drill and drill and drill to build the muscle memory. I have taught them how the first time I went to CrossFit, I was given a PVC pipe and nobody let me, do squats or any of those things with weights until I could demonstrate perfect form with the PVC pipe. I felt like a little kid, but at the end of the day, as soon as I got weight on there, I was able to have great form so that I prevented injury. It's exactly the same in tumbling. We need to make sure that we have good muscle memory before we're actually doing the skill spotted by a coach. That means we're no longer going to be putting all of that reliance on the coach. Things like pushing your hips forward or straightening your legs or arms by your ears or blocking with your shoulders. All of those things are going to be things they can recollect from the drills that they've been doing. And so they're no longer looking for the coach to just throw them over in a standing tuck or a handspring. They're now able to put those pieces that they did at each of those stations for drills together to have a solid skill. So the only thing the coach is spotting at that point is stuff that now the coach can take and troubleshoot and say, I'm seeing that maybe you're not jumping hard enough in the back handspring. So now I can give you some drills where you'll jump harder. Maybe you're not jumping high enough where you don't have a solid rotation in the standing tuck. So now I can give you drills to troubleshoot those. So really, if you're teaching your parents the importance of the drills, they're going to be so much better retained in those recreational classes because they're going to understand why a coach is not able to spot them one-on-one through the entire class. It's no longer about there being 8 or 10 kids in the class. It's about intentional drills that a coach is able to make corrections on. And that is as important as being spotted by a coach, if not more. And so you're educating your parents on these things. I realized when you had that post that my all-star parents are pretty educated on those things. But my rec parents, especially those new ones who may have come in the last 3 to 6 months, probably need that education still. Number 3, educate your parents on what you're doing in the gym to keep their kids safe. Now, when I talk about safety, that can be a variety of different things. Hurricane right now headed toward Panama City, right? What are you doing to keep the kids safe? What is your procedure on canceling classes? Blizzard heading to Wisconsin for the 17th time this year. What are you doing to keep kids safe to make sure that if they're in your facility when the blizzard begins or there's going to be a ton of ice in Kansas, that you are either canceling classes in enough time that those teenagers aren't driving to the gym, or you have a procedure to keep them safe. If you're in a tornado area or you're in an area with forest fires, like what is the policy of procedure in the gym? So the first one, natural disasters. Make sure you have a policy in place and make sure your parents have been educated on what that policy is. Number 2, concussion and injury protocols. I had a parent last night say something along the lines, I said, she just seemed like she was very emotional throughout the night. Just wanted you to know so that you can kind of have a conversation with her. Emotions aren't a bad thing, but it was a little bit of a roller coaster for us. And I think maybe some of the constructive criticism, she was taking that very personally. So I let her mom know that. She messaged me back a little bit later and said, said she was just crying because she hit her head at practice. So I said, actually, that would never happen. I was with her group the entire time. The other coach was with the other group. Even during pyramid, we had 2 coaches on the group the whole time. We take head injury very seriously. A kid would never hit their head on anything without a coach seeing it or without a coach being able to say, okay, we need to complete an injury report or we need to check on that kid and do an assessment on the athlete. So it was reassuring to be able to tell the parent, here's what our protocol would be if an athlete did get hit in the head. So unless it happened before they walked in the gym or after they walked out of the gym, that did not happen in practice. Now, it's not about telling the parent that their child was maybe dishonest with them. It's about feeling that confidence that I can tell a parent if your child got hit in the head for any reason, you would know about it because we take concussion and protocols seriously. That goes the same for injuries. Is there an injury that required an ice pack? Did it require an athlete to sit out for a few minutes or maybe not finish practice? Is an athlete complaining about the same thing over and over? And maybe the parent doesn't know that because by the time the athlete gets home, they feel fine and they don't say anything to mom about it. Do you have protocols in place for injuries and concussions? That's something your parents should know about. The third one on there, equipment inspection. The last thing you want is a mat has pulled away from the tumble track and now an athlete is landing their round off or they're landing a handspring right between the tumble track and the mat. It is incredibly scary. And not only that, it's going to create some, blockage for the athletes because they're now going to have a very real fear of the injury that could happen. So are you going around and taking a look at the equipment before your classes and before your practices to make sure everything is safe? Are you checking trampolines for tears? Do you have a system or a protocol in place that if there were to be a penny-sized tear, that an athlete is not going to be on that trampoline until it's been assessed, looked at, and repaired by someone within the facility? Equipment inspections can be really important when you're talking about things like the springs and not necessarily a spring floor, but mats pulling away from the edge of something or getting really close to a wall, especially in those smaller facilities where you maybe have poles in the middle of the floor. Do you have a policy that says they're not going to do power tumbling within that panel or within 5 feet of that pole because you don't want there to be an injury? There's always going to be mats wrapped around it, soft, cushiony, something around it. And that's part of your equipment inspection to make sure that it's secure. Do you have mats that slide and you are inspecting them to make sure that there's Velcro attaching them to the mat, to the flexibles? These are things that your parents need to know that they don't necessarily need the step-by-step system, but they need to know that you are inspecting equipment and that if you see something, you're not going to let an athlete tumble on that until it has been checked and verified that it's going to be safe. And lastly, the most important one of all, educate your parents on what you're doing to keep their children safe when they are not in the facility. So I'm going to be honest, cameras, they are hindsight. If your answer to this is we have cameras in our facility and that's how we keep kids safe, the hindsight is 20/20. And so it's only after an athlete that something has happened with an athlete that you would go back and look at the cameras. We want to be more proactive than that. Cameras themselves do not prevent bad adults from doing bad things. So what is the policy in the gym? Do you have a 2-person concept where 2 adults who are not married or related in any way have to be in the facility at any given time with an athlete? Do you, have a policy that a coach cannot be doing a private lesson privately in one room while the remainder of classes or practices are going on in another part of the facility? What do you have in place to ensure that kids are safe? Because I will tell you, some of the parents in your gym are going to be overly trusting. And I hear this from parents when I say, hey, Coach Patrick is the only one in the facility at that time, so I do just need you to stay for the private lesson and you'll have to stay in this area if we're going to schedule it at that time. That's the policy in the gym and the policy that Coach Patrick has asked as well. Right? It's something that we are doing to protect our staff so there's never a question. And I have parents sometimes who are like, oh, sure, I can be there, but I trust him. I understand that you do. He understands that you trust him, but that's not something that's ever going to happen in our gym. Make sure your parents understand that policy. Even if you're a mom and you're doing private lessons and they're alone, should not happen. Even if you have female coaches, it doesn't matter. Make sure your parents know what you're doing to keep athletes safe and adhere to every policy that you have set in place and told those parents about. Not only that, but it keeps both you and your coaches accountable for the policies and procedures that you've created in your gym to keep those kids safe. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching Fireside Chat with the Johnston, the only Johnston this time. And I look forward to seeing you guys on again next week when Justin will be back here with me. And we've got a really great 2-part topic for you that I think you are going to get so much out of.